Okay, so the Photoshop is probably going to be more useful for your final project. Because what we did this semester was actually we took out a mini project 2. So your Twitter lab that you have now, which is mini project 2, was actually mini project 3 last semester. So you guys are doing a little less work. So what we decided to do is shift like some of the stuff you do in mini project 2, which was basically mock up the site and then code it in HTML and CSS. And we're going to put that into the final project instead. Because you would have been doing the same thing anyway. So it's kind of less workload, but we put it in the wrong, I guess, sort of not at the correct timing in terms of our schedule. So that's the reason why the Photoshop lecture might have seemed kind of tasteless.
Oh, he also reminded me of something I was going to say here. So also there's some comments about like when we were lecturing, we're only teaching concepts, and then it's like really hard to figure out what you want to do when you're actually doing the lab. And I think this is like a pretty like, it's part of like learning any language or like doing CS. So like we can't possibly teach you like every single property, like every single aspect of the language. Like we kind of expect you to kind of research on your own. When I learned HTML, CSS, I basically learned it all by myself, like from online resources. So there are a lot of online resources out there if you kind of want to like enhance your knowledge, because we can't teach you everything. We're, as I said, we're just giving you a taste of everything, so you know the basics and you know how to research more about it, and you can understand like the online resources when they try to give you more advanced topics. So also we had some website suggestions. We'll try to take that into account maybe for next semester. Oh yeah, someone said it's really strict grading. So your grade when you look at your actual percentage is actually not your actual score, because we haven't graded a lot of things. Like we haven't done the final project, and that's sort of like half your grade. So obviously you have below 50% right now, and same with mini project and lab. So I believe the total, or like at least the highest score from what I saw was like 0.33. That was the highest score. So when you look at your grade, just like base it off that. We'll try to get grading up. Someone asked when we'll have like the rest of the stuff graded, and right now I think we only have the mini project, or no, right now we only have the lab 4 or something, or quiz 4 graded, so we'll try to grade this as soon as possible so you guys can have more accurate grades. And don't worry, like, it's not like absolute grading where you have like 90% or whatever. Actually, it's not letter grading anyways, so, but we're gonna do it more on a curve, so if you guys basically like show up to lecture and you try, you'll pass. Don't worry about it. Also, there are some questions if we're going to offer an advanced decal. We're trying to split into 2 sections, as I said before, so I'm not sure if there will be an advanced decal, like a continuation of this course, but we'll definitely keep you posted if that's something you're interested in, and maybe do a poll later to see if we have enough interest.
If you guys have like a specific topic that you're interested in, like you want to know a lot more about like building a JavaScript application, building a website like a really cool JavaScript app, or you want to build like a really cool PHP app, like talk to us and we can like point you in directions of like really cool things online that you can look at, and then if you kind of read it and kind of look up stuff online yourself, you can kind of take that, learn a lot of that stuff by yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And our last lecture of the semester is kind of open-ended, like more advanced topics. So if you guys have any like preferable topics that you want me to talk about, just talk to me later. And also, less homework load. I guess we went over this it was too heavy. So we'll try to give you, because I know it's midterm season for everyone now, so we'll try to give you less labs and less quizzes when they're mini projects. But we also want you to learn, so we can't give you like really easy assignments or else you won't learn anything. So yeah. And oh sorry. Quizzes are not useful. Someone said that quizzes are not useful. So we'll try to make so like they're more conceptual, not like coding and stuff, because you'll do the majority of your coding in labs anyways. Also, so attendance is really important. We have a couple of people. These are your IDs who we'd like to talk. We'd like you to talk to us after, because it looks like you're nearing or are over the 3 absences limit or cap for the class. So if this is an error, which I'm sure it totally is, like some people have told us that like they have midterms, like they emailed us ahead of time like saying that they're going to miss class, and that's totally fine. Just like come talk to us and we'll excuse you from those things. But we just want you to, like these people to come talk to us after so we can discuss options. Yeah. So now Alan is going to teach you PHP.
Alright, so today's lecture is basically on PHP, and actually, yeah. So last week we learned about some really cool JavaScript functions. We learned about functions, we learned about manipulations, we learned about animations, events, callback, get, post, and index. And you guys did some of that stuff in your lab, and you're going to be doing it in your mini project as well. So we're going to be done with JavaScript functions, JavaScript stuff for now. So you guys seen this slide before, the client side versus server side. I want to solidify this because this is a really important concept for today. And so what's client side is what the viewer sees. So stuff that shows up in your browser and that gets downloaded onto your computer is what you see. So images, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, that stuff is all client side. Okay, so whatever the client side does, it can only modify things that are on your computer. Server side is the person that hands you the web page. It's the person that kind of gives you an HTML document, gives you the JavaScript, gives you the CSS, and they take control of what you see. They hand you what you see. And the only code that is visible by the viewer, which is the client, is the code that the server explicitly gives to them, right? So a lot of behind the scenes stuff on the server side, the client will never see, okay, which is what you're going to be looking at today. And you can on the server side, you can perform more complex operations, and you can also store data on the server side. So server is how you kind of delegate your site and fit it to multiple people visiting your site at once. Okay. And an example of this is PHP, which is what we're going to be doing today. So what is PHP? On the client side, you have the web browser, you have HTTP requests, you go http://www. something. And that's your HTTP request. Your client also interprets and renders the received files. So basically, it's like a medium to just read stuff. And the server is someone that actually takes into account the whole what the HTTP request is and kind of generates the picture for you. So it's like the writer of a book, okay? And the client is just a reader of the book. So on this side, the client side will execute JavaScript. It'll execute HTML. It'll read HTML. It'll read CSS. And server side will send the JavaScript code. And the server side will all use to do this stuff, to send your HTML, CSS files, to send the JavaScript code. It's going to use something called PHP and MySQL, or you can use any other language. But for this class, we're going to be using PHP. Okay. And this is the stuff that you use to manipulate your HTML and CSS. So PHP is a server-side language, which means it runs on the server. So you're not going to ever get, when you view a website, you're never going to get to see the PHP. It's a scripting language, unlike HTML and CSS, and kind of unlike JavaScript. It dynamically writes HTML pages. So that what this means is that depending on who you are, or depending maybe on what time of day it is, or depending on just any number of things, it'll serve you different things. So for example, Facebook. Depending on who you are, when you go to facebook.com, you'll see a profile. You'll see your profile, right? And someone else goes to facebook.com and they'll see their profile. And that's an example of dynamically writing an HTML page. It'll serve you a different page depending on certain criteria. It also has access to server system resources, and I think this is the most important thing. And what this allows you to do is this allows you to kind of have a point where just you can send out, you can collect all the data and kind of view, kind of render views to everybody based on a central location. So what this means is, like, if I want to log in, into Facebook, they have to know there has to be some central authority that says this person's username is X and this person's password is Y. So PHP kind of does this, and it has access to this database of your username, all the usernames and passwords. So this is kind of functional. And you can also have like image processors and basically anything that a system can run. So any program. Are there any questions as to what PHP is? Why PHP is different than, say, JavaScript or HTML or CSS? No questions? Okay. Well, I'm going to show you a quick example of what this does. So this is just a really quick example of PHP, and what this site is, it's just a name list of all the names of people in the class, and I think I'm missing like 3 or 4 because I accidentally deleted 2 of them. So if your name's not on here, don't worry about it. But basically, if I were to create this in HTML and CSS and JavaScript with what you guys know so far, basically, you probably could emulate the behavior of, I could delete this person's name. Yeah, and it will delete, right? And you can probably do this in JavaScript, right? You just you remove that text from your document. But what if I wanted to persist, right? Because if this was JavaScript, if I refresh this page, that name would come back, right? But you notice if I refresh this page, it's still gone, right? And if someone else comes to this page, that name will also still be gone. So that's the point of PHP in this example. And if I keep deleting names, they'll keep going away. Even if I refresh the page, it won't come back. And I can also add names, add my own name. Yeah. So I can add names and so on. So that's basically the function of what PHP does. Is anybody still confused as to why we use PHP? Okay. And so I went over the Facebook example. Facebook shows you your profile despite sending the same file to everyone. Despite the fact that you have the same HTTP request. Someone up in the direction. Despite the fact that everyone sends the same HTTP request, Facebook.com. And authentication. PHP chooses to hide your profile information from those who are unauthorized users. So if you provide the wrong login information, they won't show you. Someone else's profile. And this is another important detail. It accesses a database. Like if you were to use HTML to basically create a Yelp query, this Yelp display, what you would have to do with HTML is create kind of a list of all the create an HTML page for every possible thing that someone can enter into this text box, right? So if I were to enter it, this one says Italian. So if I entered in Italian, you would have to create an HTML page just for Italian. And then if I entered in something else, you would have to create an HTML page just for that. But PHP does this all for you and accesses the database. So this is kind of what happens when you send an HTTP request. This is an HTTP, well, what we call an HTTP lifecycle. And when you type into your browser type in something in the address bar, what your client does is it requests a file, and the web server finds the file. And before it was the case that it was an HTML file, so the web server fetched the HTML file, and it also fetched the JavaScript file, and then sent it back to you. And what's going to happen now is that we're going to have this element in here, which parses the file, and modifies the HTML and modifies the JavaScript. And so your client never actually sees PHP. Okay. This is server-side PHP code, and it looks ugly. And you've probably never seen this. Even if you right-click and just hit Use Source on a page, you're never going to see this, because this is what the server parses. They do this all before they even send out anything. Okay. And this is what you end up seeing. So what this does is it's kind of a programming language that follows a flow that if something is it kind of says, if you satisfy these set of conditions, we'll display this set of HTML elements to you. And if you satisfy another set of conditions, we'll display instead these set of HTML elements to you. So it picks and chooses from different HTML elements to display to you. Okay.
and then your end result is just this HTML file. So on your end, on the client end, this looks no different. You don't even know that this is a PHP file. You just see an HTML file. So this is basically the lifecycle. Is anybody confused by the lifecycle, like the kind of the browser server interaction, the lifecycle? Are there any questions about this? So how do you interact with PHP? How do you give it input? So there's something called GET request, and this is an example of GET request. If you went to Google, if you didn't have a GET request, this would be what you saw. Just only google.com/search. This question mark, and then this long string of text is the GET request. Okay. And what a GET request is, it's kind of like a property value declaration. It's kind of like in CSS, right? You have some property, we'll call this AQ, and then this value is f. The property source ID is equal to Chrome. Okay, so it's kind of like when you were in CSS, you had like font weight is bold. This is basically the same. We call it a key value. All right.
How is that different from Ajax?
It's pretty much like the same. It is the same as Ajax.
Oh.
Okay. So, okay. And what this does is it'll send this GET request to your server. So on the PHP side of the code, you can see these things. This is a cookie, and what cookies are a little harder to explain. Cookies are kind of invisible to web browser unless you explicitly go look for them. They kind of track the state of, they answer the question who you are. Right? So if you have a web browser open and you log into Facebook, what Facebook does is that they store a cookie onto your web browser, and usually they'll store maybe like an ID on. They'll store maybe. Well, they shouldn't store your ID, but let's just say they store your username. Okay. So the next time you come back, what your web browser will do is that it'll look for cookies for Facebook.com, and it'll look for a cookie name, say login, and then your browser will see, oh, you're logging on to Facebook.com, and we'll send all the cookies that are associated with Facebook.com. So it'll automatically send the cookie name login, and so that's how Facebook knows that you are logged in. And if there's no cookie present, Facebook will just say, you're not logged in. Any questions? All right. So this is a post request. This is basically a form. You guys have done web forms, right? And the form, it's the method you put in. Form action is equal to something, and you say method is equal to post. Well, post is also kind of invisible, and it's used for large data. It's kind of like get, except you don't get anything here. And it's kind of in the background, and you use it for things that are kind of sensitive to how large they are. I think get has a maximum limit. Post does not have capacity. We'll go over more about post and get requests later. But is anybody confused?
How many people have started on their mini project? Oh, okay, I didn't see anything. I'm too sure. It's like nice. This is very relevant. So if you have any questions, make sure you ask. He has a question.
I have a question. Is the CSS file really messed up? Because mine keeps pushing the text over to the pictures, or if I take it from the website.
Sorry, I can't hear you. Can you speak louder?
No, the CSS file is messed up. All of us have different.
My CSS file isn't displaying the page properly.
Oh, for the project?
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird. Yeah, we'll come take a look after during lab. Thanks.
Call us over after that. Any other questions relating to the lecture? All right. So I kind of went over this already. Get variables, post variables, and cookies. Get variables are set in the URL. Post variables are the result of submitting a form. So the form element in HTML. And cookies are the result of
setting them in PHP code. And we'll go more in detail in setting cookies later. So how do you actually grab these values in PHP? And you just use something called these are basically global environment variables. You don't have to know the exact term for that, but basically what they are is they'll get the property that was set here. And what's really confusing is that actually never mind. You probably won't run into it. But if you run into errors with these variables, let me know and call me over.
What do you mean you can use them?
Okay, so in PHP you can access these variables, and you learn about it's basically the same as variables in JavaScript. So what this does is it basically grabs the value 10 from your get variable, and so if you in your PHP code you can use these as the variable. And likewise for post, if you were to receive a post request, this is how you retrieve it, and you have a cookie, this is how you retrieve it.
Is the value returned by always like a string, or like what data type? Or are there data types in PHP?
Types are wacky in PHP.
Oh.
But in the case of this is usually a string, but you can convert a string to an integer. You can use integer if a string only has numbers in it, you can use it as an integer.
What's a string?
String is text. It's not a number. So it's anything with quotes around it that you use in JavaScript. Any other questions? Is anybody confused by this? Okay. And so likewise, we can kind of use what we do in PHP is we dynamically create links, and we kind of say, whenever you take these ID, for example, this is a Facebook URL. What Facebook is probably going to do is that they're going to take this get ID and they're going to call this get user ID, and they're going to look up this user ID in their database, and they're going to return the profile for this person's user ID. So that's usually how we use get requests. And get requests are usually used for pages that are kind of like HTML pages, that if you visit this link, you'll usually see the same thing. You'll always see this person's profile ID. Okay? And post requests are used for one-time submissions, usually. So if you wanted to email someone, if you had a contact form and you want to email someone, that's usually a one-time submission. A login is usually also a one-time submission. So but a get request would be something like, you want to bookmark or you want to go back to this page. That's something that you would want to make a get request, or you want to prove it. Right? And we're going to go over some examples of this. So if you're confused, don't worry, because there are a lot of examples. So this example, I'm using a get request to kind of set the R variable equal to hello, and thus we get, your get query for the variable R is equal to hello. And this is the PHP code I use to this is some PHP code. This is probably the first time you've seen it. We open up the PHP tag with open bracket question mark PHP, and you close it with question mark close brace. And basically, you can put this in a file, something .php, and anywhere else, anything else you put in this document,
can be interpreted as HTML. We can do that. So, if you write code in here that's not in these braces, it'll just be interpreted as regular HTML. It's just like if you did before.
So the PHP tags are basically like HTML tags, like you can have multiple of them all over the place?
Yeah, you can have multiple of these all over the place. They're basically just like HTML tags, and you put them anywhere on the page. And you can kind of embed your HTML, you can kind of embed this document with PHP code.
Oh, so it's like the PHP tags like conditional HTML, depending on what the server does.
It's conditional HTML. Like your server will look at this, will look at your PHP document, it'll go through and see, it'll ignore everything that's not in these PHP tags. And it'll only look at stuff that's in the PHP tags, and then it'll start like reading this code. And then it'll interpret it.
Cool.
And then what it output is it'll output HTML. Yeah.
So every time within the PHP tag, do we start every line with echo, or is that?
Oh, yeah.